It sounds all rough and edgy, like your shark tooth when you're cutting out a plank from the canoe. For the canoe, said Taffy. You mean all sharp with the edges like this? Said Tagumai, and he drew, and it looks like a W. Exactly, said Taffy. But we don't want all those teeth. Only put two. I'll only put in one, said Tagumai. If this game of ours is going to be what I think it will, the easier we make our sound pictures, the better for everybody. And he drew, and now it looks kind of like an N. Now we've got it, said Tagumai, standing on one leg. I'll draw 'em all in a string like fish. Hadn't we better put a bit of stick or something between each word so they won't rub up against each other and jostle, same as if they were carps? Oh, I'll leave a space for that, said her daddy, and very incitingly he drew them all without stopping on a big new bit of birch bark. And there's Shuyalasymanu. Shuyalasymanu, said Taffy, reading it out sound by sound. That's enough for today, said Tagumai. Besides, you're getting tired, Taffy. Never mind, dear, we'll finish it all tomorrow, and then we'll be remembered for years and years after the biggest trees you can see are all chopped up for firewood. So they went home, and all that evening Tagumai sat on one side of the fire and Taffy on the other, drawing yas and yos and shoes and she's in the smoke on the wall and giggling together till her mummy said, Really, Tagumai, you're worse than my Taffy. Please don't mind, said Taffy. It's only our secret surprise, mummy dear, and we'll tell you all about it the very minute it's done, but please don't ask me what it is now, or else I'll have to tell. So her mummy most carefully didn't, and bright and early next morning Tagumai went down to the river to think about the new sound pictures, and when Taffy got up, she saw Ya Loss, water is ending, or running out, chalked on the side of the big stone water tank outside the cave. Said Taffy. These picture sounds are rather a bother. Daddy's just as good as come here himself, and told me to get more water for Mummy to cook with. She went to the spring at the back of the house and filled the tank from a bark bucket, and then she ran down to the river and pulled her daddy's left ear, the one that belonged to her to pull when she was good. Now come along and we'll draw all the leftover sound pictures, said her daddy, and they had a most inciting day of it, and beautiful lunch in the middle, with 2 games of romps. When they came to tea, Taffy said that as her name and her daddy's and her mummy's all began with that sound, they should draw a sort of family group of themselves holding hands. That was all very well to draw once or twice, but when it came to drawing it 6 or 7 times, Taffy and Tagumai drew it scratchier and scratchier, till at last the T sound was only a thin, long Tagumai with his arms out to hold Taffy and Tashumai. You can see from these 3 pictures partly how it happened. And you see a man and a woman and a child slowly turn into a T. Many of the other pictures were much too beautiful to begin with, especially before lunch, but as they were drawn over and over again in birch bark, they became plainer and easier, till at last even Tagumai said he could find no fault with them. They turned the hissy snake the other way round for the Z sound, to show it was hissing backwards in a soft and gentle way. And they just made a twiddle for E, because it came into pictures so often. And they drew pictures of the sacred beaver of the Tagumais for the B sound. And you can see a drawing of a beaver turn into a B. And because it was a nasty, noisy noise, they just drew noses for the N sound till they were tired. And they drew pictures of the big lake pike's mouth for the greedy G sound, and they drew the pike's mouth again with a spear behind it for the scratchy, hurty Ka sound. And they drew pictures of a little bit of the winding Wagai River for the nice, windy Wa sound, and so on and so forth, and so following till they had done and drawn all the sound pictures that they wanted, and there was the alphabet all complete. And after thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and after hieroglyphics, and demotics, and nilotics, and cryptics, and kufics, and runics, and dorics, and ionics, and all sorts of other ricks and tricks, because the wounds, and the neguses, and the akhuns, and the repositories of tradition would never leave a good thing alone when they saw it. The fine old easy-to-understand alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, and the rest of them, got back into its proper shape again for all best beloveds to learn when they are old enough. But I remember Tegumi Bopsalai, and Taphimai Metalamai, and Teshumi Terwindro, her dear mummy, and all the days gone by, and it was so, just so, long time ago, on the banks of the big Wagai. Of all the tribe of Tegumai who cut that figure none remain. On Marrow Down the cuckoos cry, the silence and the sun remain. But as the faithful years return, and hearts unwounded sing again, comes Taffy dancing through the fern, to lead the Surrey spring again. Her brows are bound with bracken fronds, and golden elf locks fly away. Her eyes are bright as diamonds, and bluer than the skies above. In moccasins and deerskin cloak, unfearing, free and fair she flits, and lights her little damp wood smoke, to show her daddy where she flits. For far, oh very far behind, so far she cannot call to him, comes Tegumai alone to find the daughter that was all to him. And that is the end.